What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Inspire, Create, Manifest podcast. I'm your host, Joe Longo, and today I am super excited to have a conversation with Barbara With. Barbara is an international peace activist, an award-winning author, composer, and performer who has written 6 nonfiction books on metaphysics and consciousness. She's also the co-founder of Conflict Revolution, a powerful framework for resolving conflicts of the psyche as a pathway to global peace. Barbara's work comes from her years as a psychic channel with a group she calls The Party, headed up by none other than Albert Einstein. I cannot wait to dive into this conversation with you today, Barbara.
Crazy, huh?
Right?
Crazy.
There's so many different ways to go, but I do want to start with this because I feel it's this like little connection that we have. You wrote a paper entitled "Why the Secret Doesn't Work and How to Fix It." A couple of weeks ago, I put out a solo episode saying why manifestation is bullshit. And I'd love to start there with it. Just your thoughts to share with the viewer, the listener, about why the secret doesn't work and how we might be able to fix that.
Well, Joe, thank you for having me and for being the guy that's forwarding this conversation because it drives me insane. But I want to start with my own manifestation story, and that's also going to inform people about my background, how I got to be a psychic. It'll just be the synopsis of it. But I started out as a composer. I started writing music when I was 12.
Wow.
And all I ever wanted to be was a rock star. And by the time I was 17, and got out of high school, I went right on the road. I had 2 solid sets of original material. It was the early 70s, so it was singer-songwriter. And I spent every fiber of my being for probably 15 solid years working to manifest my dream to be a rock star. And while it was in Minneapolis. And, you know, I was world famous in Minneapolis, as we say. I won awards. I was singing on people's albums. I eventually made my own CD. But in 1987, I was so clutching the rock star idea that it was killing me. So that's when I came in off the road and I discovered I had this other talent for being intuitive arts, I call it. Now, through high school, my friend's mom was a psychic and gave us readings. But from that went this direction, which is too much to talk about at this time. But I started doing group channeling with 2 women, and we call ourselves a psychic sorority. We documented what the channeling was. And it was these angels, quote unquote, telling us they had a theory about how to bring world peace if we would just do this inner work. And they needed people to test it on their conflicts. And that was the 3 of us. So that's where Conflict Revolution was born. And then later, after our book came out and I got a little bit, you know, I was still world famous in Minneapolis. And I ended up getting invited by a metaphysical tabloid to see if I could do an interview with Princess Di from Beyond the Grave. So that's a whole nother story. But that's what led to discovering the Party of 12, that they were working in afterlife with us for world peace. And they were probably in the angels, if you get my drift. And that's where I met Einstein. And so everything that has happened in that time, and I just turned 70 this year. So I can look back on these decades of unfolding in a much better way than I could have back then. So when The Secret came out, I balked because it was completely counterintuitive to what we had been teaching in Conflict Revolution. That just stay in those nice feelings and just, you know, here's the diamonds and here's your boyfriend and here's your everything outside yourself. And I was kind of mortified as I watched people like eating this up. I mean, it was one of the first viral marketing pieces and they had huge pre-sales because of how they marketed it. And I bought the How We Marketed the Secret ebook and realized their mission was not to help us heal ourselves or help us manifest. It was to make money. That was their first mission. And I don't begrudge them that, but don't try to tell me. So it went from there. And I started actually advising people because people would come to me and they're like, I'm just a mess. I've been doing nothing but thinking positive thoughts and nothing's happening. And so, just to round up, the message is you can be in all those positive thoughts like I was all those 15 years where I was going to be a rock star and not manifest what your intellectual mind thinks you want. You can, however, and this is what we teach in Conflict Revolution, is how to work the whole system, how to get the conflict out of it, and how to align ourselves with the good of the whole. Starting with ourself, because there's a self here. And then manifestation happens beyond our wildest dreams. And I'm the living example.
So thank you for sharing that. I'd love to explore when you say get the conflict out of it. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Absolutely. Well, very simply in Conflict Revolution, we work with, it's a daily practice. It's a kind of perspective. And we work with 4 parts of our inner life. One is to develop that witness. You know, you can watch yourself. And what we're watching is intellect in our heads, intuition in our hearts, and emotion in our solar plexus. And first of all, we teach you what each one actually is in terms of the operating system we're working with, how individually it works, how they work together, and how we screw it up ourselves. We create the conflicts, and it's very simple. Intuition says, rest. Intellect says, I can't rest. I've got a million things to do, and then makes the decision to go override intuition and do a million things. And there you start to create the conflicts. And, you know, you get tired, and then you're having fights with people, and you know, nothing's working out, and you wonder why you're being victimized. And Einstein said, all of the conflicts in the world that manifest in the outer world begin at this root. If we were intuitively guided to work for the good of the whole, and then when we train our intellects how to shut up and do the job it really was meant to do, then we kind of surrender and step back. And the other piece of this is this idea that we're only supposed to stay in these good feelings. We teach you a way how to embrace all of it, because it's unified field. We're trying to unify ourselves, to move it through the body and while it's happening, without marrying itself to the thoughts. And it's so revolutionary, and yet it's so simple, and it makes so much sense, and it's so powerful, because if you're mad at someone and you're projecting all your anger onto them and making up these stories about what they did and how they don't respect you and all of that, and you're angry and anxious and you're fueling those thoughts, that's creating reality. So when you pull away the fuel of the emotion, and instead your mind is saying, you know what, I don't need to know why I feel this way. I need to stop right now and use my breath to move this active, present moment, uncomfortable emotion through me. Like, don't let it marry to anything other than that kind of thought or whatever. It revolutionizes everything.
Yeah. And it is simple, right? The simple practices. I was not a strong student in school, but the one thing I do remember are my teachers saying, always go with your first guess, right? That first, like, your first answer is always the right answer. But it's like internal, like, I'm going to second guess this, even if I don't know it, right? There's this, no, I just feel this is it. And that's like my one takeaway that I've taken from my schooling growing up, was like, listen to that voice inside, honor that, don't squash it because you're going to talk yourself out of it. And the simple practice of, can I start listening to myself? Can I start trusting myself? Or if I've been distracted from the outside world, that now I don't believe me, but if I'm not believing me, who should I believe?
Exactly.
Right? And coming to these simple practices really, I feel, is hard, because when we share this with the world and we say, but it's simple, it's a simple practice, we have to remind ourselves to do the simple practice. And a lot of us are, I feel, doing it already, just in the opposite direction, right? That anger, that inner, right, is that reflection that we see on the outside world. But can we flip it? Like, bring the awareness to, oh, wait a minute, I feel this way. It's what I'm seeing outside. It's not what I want to see. So then when we say, okay, what do you want to see? How do you want to feel? Can we go to that actual space and start being there? That may allow it to start reflecting in your outside world.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Like, can we
People,
actually be the change?
yes. And I think without, as simple as it is, and as you said, it's hard. It's the hardest work of your life because you have to look yourself in the, and as much as you are outraged about somebody else who might be disrespecting you, how are you going to feel when you stop? Watch yourself disrespect yourself. Watch your intuition say rest, and watch your mind go, I can't rest, and watch yourself make those decisions, and then watch all the conflicts that ensue. It's the hardest thing to do, but it's the only way. I don't think there's any other way for us right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be my specific way, but like you say, there's many ways you can do the shadow work and not project.
Right. And like you said, it's hard when you see like, oh crap, I was doing that. I was feeling that. I was believing that. And it's like a part of, I guess I want to say the way it's coming through for me, it's like a reality destroys, right? Like we have to literally allow a reality to be destroyed so we can come into this new way of thinking.
Right. That chrysalis.
Right. And I feel, in this space, I love to talk to people and say, we're creating our reality. Right. But as we're creating our reality, and then for lack of a better word, we start waking up to the fact that we are creating our reality and we start taking our power back and say, I'm going to listen to my internal voice. We simultaneously become reality destroyers for people around us. They're like, wait a minute, what is happening over here? You can't do it that way. Right. So it's like that's this fight of like, wait, I'm listening to my inner voice, creating my reality, doing this, realizing, right, I can do all of the work and finally realize that I'm in control. That then starts destroying the reality of the people around us. And it's this conflict.
Well, as we resonate with the conflict and we attract to us people to play the roles of the conflict. And then as we start to bring the peace inside ourselves, the world around us is naturally going to change. And those people have the free will, and they will either rise to the occasion and be benefited by it, or they'll go gravitate to somebody else who's going to play their parts. And I think what's the most profound, one of the most profound things of conflict resolution for me is having learned how to let that happen naturally without creating a conflict with someone where I have to push her away because she's just not of the highest, whatever. I have to distance myself. It's like, no, when you do it, it will naturally happen.
Yeah, man. So that was a lot right there in a really short amount of time. Take a breath, everybody. So let's jump a little bit to channeling. And how were you connected to this as the composer?
Yes.
And it's kind of always been there, and then it birthed into this space. Can
Absolutely.
we talk about I can't think of it right now, what's it called, the group, the collective,
the psychic sorority,
and then talking to Einstein and the party. Yes. So when I read that, I was like, the party, it made me feel like Napoleon Hill's mastermind group, and his concept of having a mastermind group. And in Think and Grow Rich, he talks about it. He's like, have a physical one, but have a make-believe mastermind as well. Right? Like with Einstein and the people that you would want to be there. So I'm curious, is this party like a little mastermind that you connect to?
It is. And the way that it was constructed was so phenomenal, in that when I did this interview with Princess Di, and it was just breathtaking, and her last message was, if everyone who put flowers in front of the palace when I died would do this, we'd have world peace in a day. And that was her whole message. And the tabloid didn't want it. And so my agent and I said, well, maybe there's more dead people who might want to, I mean, wouldn't you want to know? And so we made this list. And sadly, Einstein wasn't on it. Mm-hmm. And we went to Nicole Brown Simpson. Well, there's an interesting, talk about a mastermind of slices of culture. So here's some race relations, domestic violence viewpoints. You know, Diana was about world peace and fame. And then Gianni Versace, who was a designer who had been murdered and friends with Diana. By the time we got to John Kennedy, he said, this is not your idea. This is our idea. We're already here. There's 12 of us. We'll tell you who's coming. Because a lot of people said no when I went to them. Elvis, you know, Mother Teresa. It's like, no. And when Einstein came up, I channeled it through my voice. And it was the voice of every reading I'd ever given. And it took me literally about 3 years to really digest what this meant. Because when I started channeling all the way back in 1987, and it was automatic writing, and I said, who are you? And they said, we are sound. And I thought, well, that's fine with me. I've been writing music my whole life. I don't care. What are you telling me? You know? So here was this voice that had been with me since I started channeling. And probably I started playing piano when I was 4 or 5, teaching myself. Mm-hmm. Could Einstein have been there, you know, pointing out the black keys and the white keys as I sat there? But that moment of realizing that took me a while to integrate it and kind of come out of the closet, because my mission was never to convince you it was Einstein. Uh-huh. It was to ask you to listen to what he was saying and then please tell me. Because someone who never went to college and never did science, what's come out of me is clearly it's Einstein to me now. But back then it was like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm crazy. I'm crazy. But the Party of 12, interestingly enough, years later, when I finally connected with Carl Jung, and his aspects of, 12 archetypes. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, this was 2 years ago, why weren't you in the original Party of 12? Because it was Freud. Ah. And he said he was going to be the one that stepped back and made sure that the 12 archetypes were all filled. The seats were all filled. So all the Party of 12 represent his 12 archetypes. It's crazy.
Yes. And I've not that I've studied Einstein, right, at all, but we've all seen like all the fun little Einstein quotes.
Who doesn't love Einstein?
There, right? And I sit in this space of like, I have a little hoodie on right now, and there's this. I remember reading it somewhere where Einstein's wife said, somebody's coming to see you. Are you going to take off like your blue hoodie? And actually he's like, no, they're not coming to see me. Like, they're coming to talk. Yeah. They don't care what I'm wearing or how I look. And I'm like, yeah, I can wear my hoodie because that's not about my hoodie, right? It's about what we're actually discussing in that space. And then his saying that worry is the misuse of your imagination.
Beautiful.
Right. And that just sits with me in such a way, because again, it's the truth. Again, we're doing that thing that if we put the energy into the worry, right, or put the energy into our imagination, same thing. We're already playing the worry game. So why not just say, instead of worrying about what I don't want to happen, what if I start focusing on what I do want to happen and do the work so my brain starts looking that way, right? Not how am I going to save me from what I don't want, but it builds a plan to get me to what I do want.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the small changes that we make in this scenario is that when you have anger, emotion, anxiety, the pure emotion of it in your solar plexus, there's no story of why down there. It's just there. And what it does in our old operating system, as we said, it comes up and it triggers like if you're anxious, it triggers the anxious intellectual thoughts, feeds them, and the trick is kind of what we were going back to about The Secret, is that how do you go from here to here while still having real anxiety that could be from other lives, it could be from your past, it could be about the world, you don't even know why. Mm-hmm. And the trick is to understand that when you disconnect the emotion from intellect and use it with your breath to release the anxiety without attaching to the triggering thoughts, while you're feeling this anxiety doing this exercise, you can absolutely interject what you just said over here of what you want to create. But people don't, it's kind of counterintuitive. You think, what? My anger can actually be fueling the manifestation of my actual dreams? But emotion doesn't judge bad and good. It's the whole of the unified field we're going for. So it's very revolutionary.
Yes, I've been sitting with this a lot. I recently wrote a book. It comes out September 23rd. It's called Simplicity and Awareness. It's a very short, little, like very short, and stories of my life. And there's a story in there when I was a young man. There's a football helmet back there. Mm-hmm. Football was my life, right? Like when I was a little kid and somebody said, Joe, what are you going to be when you grow up? I would say, I'm going to be a football player.
What position?
I played middle linebacker, and I was small for a middle linebacker, but I was quick enough. So in that, right, like I had this pure love for the game. Don't even know where it came from. It was like it was born within me. And it was just like, I can play, I know how to do this, right? Like just innate. But there was a love that I had for it without, again, not knowing where it came from. The summer going to 10th grade, I shattered my ankle. Totally shattered my ankle. They wanted to do surgery. And like 3 days before I shattered my ankle, I was hanging out with a friend whose dad had just had pins put in his ankle. And he was like, don't ever let them put pins in your ankle. It was weird, like this weird scenario. 3 days later, I break my ankle. I'm in the hospital. They're like, we have to put pins. And I'm like, nope, no, you do not. We're not putting pins in. Everything's going to be fine. It's going to heal. And I've been sitting with this story because they told me I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to be able to do all of the things. And the last game of the football season, I played one play and had one tackle. And it was like my Super Bowl. And I've been sitting with that. Like, did I heal myself? Like, what was the magic? But it was all of it, right? And what I connected to was my love of the game. I was young enough to still be pure enough to not let anyone damper that love. And I would sit in the press box. I would go to practice every day and watch them practice. But I've just felt this love. I did the work, right, to heal. I did all of the exercises that I had to do when the cast came off, right? So it wasn't just like everything is better. The inspired action went in. But the more I look at it, I'm like, I had this energy of, I love this game. And no matter what anybody says, I'm going to get back out there. And I would practice in my brain, right? Practice as if it's happening, feel as if it's happening, but also practice like it's happening when I could, right? Do the things that I was able to do. So when that opportunity came at the last game of the season and we didn't win any games that year. And my coach was like, let's put Joe in. Like there's one play left, right? Like, let's just put him in so he can, and to have one tackle on that last play, right? Like, oh my goodness, did I manifest this? Did I create this? Right. And it was years before The Secret was out. But as I look back, I was like, the only thing that I can connect to is that unconditional love that I had for the game. And that love, right? That high energy, again, doesn't know the emotion. It just feels it. And that let me, I feel, right, looking back, to create this possibility that all the doctors said wouldn't be able to happen.
Well, that fits right into Einstein's revolutionary redefinition of compassion, the capital C, as the fifth fundamental force of the universe. It's the creative intelligence that uses the other four fundamental forces to create physical world one step at a time. And one of the things it does is it infuses us. There's three things on a scientific, quantifiable level. But one of them is it infuses all the parts of the whole with the deep innate understanding that they're just one. They're one whole. They know that. And that compassion, working through our intuition, is always impelling us to take the next most advantageous step for the good of the whole. And sometimes this is another fallacy. I think people think if you follow your intuition, suddenly everything's just going to be a bed of roses. And it's not. And sometimes intuition tells you to do things that your intellect is going to scream bloody murder about, that later, in the bigger scheme of things, turn out to be for the good of the whole. And I think what your story is interesting because you didn't end up being any kind of football star, but what you learned in all of that whole story was absolutely essential for where you were destined to go.
Right. And it literally just kept like that. Again, the game took me to where I needed to be, because here's the other fun thing: got a football scholarship and then failed a class, a photography class, and then went on to become a photographer.
You weren't indoctrinated. That's all there is to it.
Like following these things and just being like, oh, hey, I don't know what is happening. And even in that space, right? Like my intuition was saying, don't play football anymore. And everybody was like, what are you doing? You're walking away from a scholarship. I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I know I'm not as big as those guys.
And we don't have to know. We don't have to even explain it. It's just
right. But it like I look back and like it got me here right now talking to you. Literally, right?
Exactly.
And that is like, wow, like sitting in that space really makes me feel like anything is possible, but we do have to do work, right? I can't just have my vision board and blink my eyes and think, oh, here it is, right? Like, cool, have the vision board, but what are you going to do to bring that vision to life?
Yes. And on a root level, what we say in conflict revolution is when you first go inside and make sure all of these three emotions are aligning to compassion, which means intuition comes up, we feel the whole thing. I mean, emotion comes up, we feel the whole thing. It informs intuition about what's the next step. It hits intellect where the actual mechanism works. If it says turn left, it's your intellect that's going to grab the thing and align them. So intellect, instead of worrying about the future and getting fueled into anxious thoughts, is always in a position of, first of all, being in present moment, to see what's going on and listening for intuition and then implementing what it says. And oftentimes there's a conflict that then arises because of that. And then you have to start over, feeling and breathing, listening to intuition, get your intellect. So, and then the vision board manifests, except you don't get to say what timeline. A person recently dropped into my life who he's a lawyer and he does pro bono work. He's looking for save the world projects. He has an incredible capacity. He found me somewhere, has pursued me, had several conversations about the connections that he has, how he wants to fit my dreams in, all my dreams of music. I've got so many songs, I can be shopping. Okay, so it's, 60 years later. So we might as well be in present moment while we're going through it, because you just never know how it's going to manifest. If you give up, if you stop the process, then whatever, you're kind of hither and yon.
It's that wonderful idea that we keep receiving the lessons until we learn the lesson.
Exactly.
And it's life, right? It's this.
It's what we're here for.
Exactly. To
what else are we going to do?
To experience it all. So let's jump into your piece. You're the bringer of the peace. How do we do that?
Well, I left my life in 2023 to spend the rest of my life on this. I call it I'm a peace program. I've been traveling ever since, and I created what's called a Conflict Revolution Challenge. It's a free download on my website. Plus, then there's a little workbook for 12 weeks And I challenge you, do it. Document for yourselves like we did in the beginning of the Psychic Sororities Diaries. Because when you start to, and honestly, you won't need 12 weeks, but when you start to document it and you start to see, oh my gosh, when I went in here and really tackled my resentment of my coworker, I found a conflict that had nothing to do with her and me. I went over here and I when I got it, I made amends and what I needed to do. Then she got fired. Now, I didn't go out to fire her. So I challenge the world to download it. It's free. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can see on my website that's accessible to understand what can motivate you to start getting up in the morning and having this daily practice. Like you said, it's that small. It's like at one day at a time. I get up every morning. Thank you for another day of the most amazing life I ever could have dreamt up. I totally intend to make this the most magical manifestation for the good of the whole day as I can divinely create. Amen. And then I go off and I do my perspective. I get triggered and I don't, I've gotten to a place where I cannot have to explode at someone or project on somebody, but it's a lot more intense to hold and flow that emotion without projection because your intellect wants to fight, but it changes everything.
Yeah. It's that I love that you said about starting the day, right? I'm starting the day. It's going to be a great day. I'm here to uplift humanity. Let's go. Let's do this. And the more we can do that, right, we set the tone for the supercomputer, right, that we are. And I love, looking at the brain and how our brain works. I have a pink flamingo back there because pink flamingos are everywhere, but our brain stops seeing them because they're everywhere. But then as soon as you start talking about pink flamingos, people are like, oh my goodness, it's magic. I see pink flamingos everywhere. It's not magic, it's your brain. And the interesting thing is I took that story from The Secret because The Secret tries to say, I'll show you how to manifest a pink flamingo. I'm like, no, you're not. You're showing people how to get their brain to start working for them to see the pink flamingo that is already in front of their face, but they can't see it. And it's like that with everything. Like if you hate your boss and you constantly say, I hate my boss is a big old dummy, and you get a new job, within 2 weeks, your new boss is going to be the same big old dummy as the last one, because that's what you trained your brain to look for.
Well, and just to add conflict resolution, the trigger is that somewhere you're being a big old dummy. And when you find that, your boss will stop being a big old dummy. I guarantee. Well, maybe not, but they'll disappear.
Right. I love that because it really is. It's the mirror.
Yeah.
And we are the mirror. We're big old dummies.
I had a client in Oslo some years ago, and her trigger was her mother-in-law, who she was convinced wanted her to be deported. She was from Barbados in Norway, married to her son. And for 25 years, she had this story that her mother-in-law hated her. When she did the course and we did the revolution, and her soundbite was, she wants to deport me. And she looked at me and she said, you know where this is going, don't you? And I said, not because I'm some big psychic, but because it's a formula. And if you say she wants to deport me, and she said it herself, she said, I'm homesick, but I can't go home. I said, why can't you go home? Well, I've got these 2 kids. And I'm like, what are they, like 3 months and 2 years? 14 and 17. I was like, what lie are you telling yourself? And that was it for her. Not only did the Rolodex affect, she goes back in time where, how many times did I project on my mother-in-law that she wanted me deported when really it was me who wanted to go home, but I wouldn't let myself. And then she's back to Barbados all the time now. So
I love these little connections. For everyone that's listening, you probably heard me tell the story. One of my most favorite people is Neville Goddard, and Neville Goddard is from Barbados. And there's this wonderful story about Neville Goddard wanted to go home for the holidays for Barbados, and just didn't know how to get there because he was dancing in New York. And he said every night I would go to bed and I would pretend I was in Barbados. I went to sleep in Barbados. If I got up to go to the bathroom, I was going to the bathroom in Barbados. And I started feeling into it and allowing my brain to figure out, how can I get to Barbados?
And I bet he let his feelings of longing, frustration, sadness that he wasn't home, and his great love for Barbados, even while he was imagining all those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're interesting creatures.
Are we? Never a dull moment, at least at my house.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And the more we can, I want to say, like, come to the moment and realize that, right? Like, we are just all trying to figure out how this game of life works, and to have some compassion for ourselves. We were like, nobody gave me a rule book for this game that I'm playing. I'm just trying to figure it out. And I think in that grace of I'm trying to figure it out, I'm going to start trusting me. I'm going to start trusting myself to navigate through this existence and
Well,
create.
if you trust yourself to listen to your intuition, because that's a big trust building exercise that you have to go through to say, oh, this is what it means. Then there's no other trust that you need of anybody.
Yeah. I'm smiling if you're listening, everyone, because I really feel like it's a coming home. It's a coming home to yourself.
Yes.
And in that, like, there's can't be a better place at 11:11 here in the Pocono Mountains of coming home, right, to yourself, and honoring that, and knowing that it could be simple daily practices that get us there.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a hustle or a hurry up, but it could just be, I'm being, and I'm going to do the things to support me. Barbara, this,
I know, we could go on and
on and on.
Well, let's do it again.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to link your website and the 12-week everything in the show notes for everybody.
And let me have a special for you and your listeners.
Yes.
If you want to have a reading, buy a half-hour reading and I'll give you an hour.
All right. You hear that, everybody? Get a half hour, get an hour. That
BarbaraWith.com. BarbaraWith.com.
BarbaraWith.com. And what, I just have to say this, because what a great name, Barbara With. When I was, I'm like, wait a minute, am I missing something? And I was talking to my partner, Tina. I was like, I'm recording this podcast episode tomorrow, but with Barbara With. And she was like, who? I was like, Barbara With. And it was like, she's got it in this circle.
It's like, who's on first? Who is Barbara With? I know, but daughter of Ed and Lorna. With.
This was wonderful. Thank you for all that you're doing and the awareness that you are bringing to the planet, because definitely the planet needs it. I appreciate you.
Right back at you.
Thank you so much. Everyone that is here listening, thank you for being here with us today. It was power packed. So take all of that, follow those links in the show notes, and let's start moving forward in a beautiful way. Thanks, everybody.